Okay, welcome everyone to our review, Bezrat Hashem, of the Shir on Shabbos, Tisa Tafshin Ayin Vav. So we have over here, if we can continue from last week's parasha, it's a very good opportunity to see the Tzava and Tisa as really Mikachat to some extent, because what we have over here is a parasha that goes from last week's Aharon, and he was absolutely the king of last week's parasha. And then this week, we have a sudden change of direction, going from a parasha which the hero is Aaron, the man, not Aaron even as the Kohen, but Aaron Achicha, as we spoke about last week. He becomes literally the living ruach of the Mishkan. As Rabbeinu Baruch points out, he's Keneged Adam Arishon, who is the Makir and the Oved and the Miyached, and that which brings the Mishkan to life. And this has all kinds of implications. The halacha, I want to sit over there, I can see it. All kinds of implications. The halacha in terms of Lidorot, that he's allowed to go in. He doesn't need to wait for Yom Kippurim to go in. And he's the one who is Madlik, the Menorah's Rabban says, during his entire life, and the way that the Gra understands the Kiba Anan, Era La Kapora, that this is the Anan specifically comes out to be the Anan of his, therefore he doesn't need the Reshut, and so on. So the special dinim of the Mashiach becomes part of the actual Mashiach or Moed, as opposed to just like the other Kohanim, with the mixtures with the Dam, that's Al Mizbeach. Many, many things that we were made on, in the sense that it's literally a Chelek Chai of the Mishkan, just as Adam Arishon becomes a Chelek Chai of the universe. And that's why he calls himself Adam. It becomes the explanation of why on the third day, when we have the second story, so now it's that the Kosiach Hasadeh, Termitzmark, which is not the Kosiach Hasadeh, Tefillah itself, goes back to the Makir and the Mitpalel and the Adam Yaramayin, La'avodat Adamah, which is the Avodah of Tefillah. This is literally what he is doing here in the Mishkan, and it's an unbelievable daragah. And we saw that, but Dafka, it's Moshe Rabbeinu who takes the Shiva Yamim of his argument, that Shivat Yamim was the translation of Ani Amarti Ata Kohen V'hu Levi. Those Shivat Yamim become the Shivat Yamim in which indeed Moshe is Kohen. And then he hands it over, and Ve'ata Levi, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, fine. So we'll have the Shivat Yamim. You'll be the days that you're supposed to know. You are the one who takes the Aaron Achicha, and you're the one who's Mechayin to be Shali, and so on and so forth. And this parasha, man, one could say that Aaron is the villain, essentially, right? I mean, Heveta Alehem Chata'a Gedola, Moshe Rabbeinu says. Aaron Shimtza B'Komehem. I mean, especially the Orach Chaim's approach is that the Shimtza B'Komehem. See if we can get this to work out. I'm proud of myself without any help. It did work. So he says, what's the meaning? Ki para'o Aaron shimtza b'kemim ulai sheyichavim lomar she'al yedei teshuvat Aaron nishar kol chov Aaron alehem. He ends up saying, I didn't do anything. They did everything. It's an amazing thing. So he said, first of all, he's reduced totally, right? Please don't get angry at me. And he's sitting there begging for the, Moshe Rabbeinu, Adoni. I mean, I didn't do anything. What was I supposed to do? And then he starts talking about Klal Yisrael. I'll tell you that. You know what's going on with the Am. We got to talk about how terrible they are. And that, what could I do? I don't know. Everybody comes and they complain and they bring that. The whole thing popped out by itself. I mean, so tiny is the Orach Chaim. That's exactly. Nishar kol chov alayhem. Aaron lo asa davar sheyesh bo mamash b'nei ha'egan. No, hakol na'asa al yedei notnei hazahav. ועשו בו בחשבות, הצאת העגל שיצא, לא עשה לנו לקיחת הזהב, ועל זה באונס, כי אומר כי ברעו, זאת אומרת, אתה מתייחס כל העוון עליהם. And there's no shogeg, there's no nothing. And this is the Ta'ana, Kippur Aaron, the way that he is to'en, so he's not throwing all the blame on them. So it's even worse. And that's so he's literally whimpering, please, sir, don't get angry at me. I mean, it's a complete and total reversal of the hafked of Aaron Achicha. Whereas Moshe in this parasha is exactly the opposite. I mean, he reaches the heights of his power. We know it's the heights of his power because the closing of the entire Chavisha Kum Shetera, the words Leinei Kol Yisrael, and this is called Yada Gedolah. This is, you're talking about putting it all in one sentence. So as Rashi says, Shmirat HaLuchot. This is how the Mechilta learns was. The most unbelievable act which becomes an adon on the Luchot, the chutzpah of it. It's unbelievable. And it was, in fact, the awesome impact of such a thing, to take the achrayut of such a thing. It just changes the entire way that he had related before in terms of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, and it's also not only a move from Aaron to Moshe in this way, but it's also a move from Gadlut to Shtuyot in terms of Klal Yisrael. It's very the way that that Yosef Bechor Shor learns this idea of the Paro l'shimtza. Also, his lashon is a beautiful lashon. What's the re'iyah? The Moshe says Kiparuah. Kiparuah. Shnitgala shtutan uklonam. This is connected. Uparat Rosh Hashanah. What's the Parat Rosh Hashanah? It's to show everybody. But this is what a person gives up on their own tzniut and their own daragah. Show you sivurim ha'olam she'em am chacham ve'ata nitgala she'em shotim. What an amazing change! So this is it's actually the pasuk, right? So that's the. The Gemara says, "Aluva kalash zinta tachat chupata." It's a scandal, as they would say, and indeed, as all the Rishonim point out, it's amazing. All of the Ummahs keep focusing on this. You take a look at the Quran; it's all about the ego. It's all that to talk about. I mean, the Shara, that's this beautiful mashal, the ma'adavar domed, that they should be making fun of us. You understand? You can imagine already the mishalim that you could make for it. But in any event, this is the Shim Tzabak. So this becomes the thing that this is the one thing they can have on us, you know. So, and indeed, I mean, Ladoris, everybody's in this boat. Everybody is shocked by this entire story.
But the Kohanim are the ones who benefit in the end from it.
Okay, that may be true. We'll see why that's true. But obviously, in the end, we know that the entire stories are fundamentally interrelated here, right? The whole thing is interwoven, as we've seen many, many times. I could go through it again. We don't have to rediscuss them. I say, hey, it's not that we have so many new things to talk about. I think everybody's aware of that interwovenness, that the Mishkan is essentially the Egel, the replacement of the Shara and Merkava with the Kruvim in the Beis Hamikdash is precisely what happens later on in Yecheskel, the difference between Yeshayahu and Yecheskel's Merkava, and Tefillah, it becomes this Nekuda, the fact that the Avodah Zarah is found in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and the idea of Ragli and Regel Egel, and so on and so forth. So all of these things, obviously, we're used to the idea that somehow all of these parshos interweave the level of the kahuna, with the tikkun of the ego, with the creation of the ego, with the nature of Avodah Zarah's connection to Avodah Shamayim, and the idea of the utilization of Yetzer, all of the things of Gemara and Yuma, the story of Yom Kippurim, and the attempt to be mitaken Yetzer, and when they Gemara and Sukkah, the Shkitat Avodah Zarah, and all of this is part of the parashot here, so that you sense, of course, there's a tremendous unity, but we have to focus on each thing and to recognize the changes that are taking place, because, I mean, we're basically moving out of this entire story of innocence and commitment and nadvanas and the desire to be part of Avodah Shamayim into a story of intrigue and all kinds of ugly beliefs of Kishuf and the Erev Rav and so on. I mean, this idea of shimtza is a pretty bad thing, you know. We always use that word, shemetz psul, and obviously the change in the rest of our history is profound. You see, we lose track of what an incredible change this is because we're so used to it, because it basically defines the way that we are. But as the Gemara understands it, it's a definition of the way that we are in the same way that Gan Eden and the Chet of Adam Rishon is a definition of the way that we are. So, it takes someone on the darga of, the mother of Tenel ben Knaz, so she calls him Yavetz because she alone, all through history, is the only one who is still in shock about that change. Everybody else, okay, people die, it happens every day. What? People die? Bnei Adam die? How is it possible to her? What kind of craziness? Women give birth in Tsar instead of enjoy with the whole world coming and the Malachim celebrating. What is this, insane? And this, of course, is what provides Otniel ben Kras the Kayach for his tefillah. So, what do you mean, headaches? I'm supposed to live with headaches? Forget about it. I'll go to the grave already. It's the same thing, right? And the Kodesh Baruch Hu says, you're right. Sorry, no headaches, promise. Okay. And so on. And it's a tremendous thing. To come into a full awareness of the changes is also very, very important, because the etzem shorish of the darga of Adam is meant to be something totally different. The same thing, of course, is true here of Har Sinai. The etzem darga of Har Sinai is something entirely different. It's charut al haluchot, charut al haluchot. And this means chirut from the Malach HaMavet, it means chirut from the Yetzer Hara, it means chirut from forgetting, right? That's the whole makor of forgetting is the Shvirat HaLuchot, that's what we learn out from the Shivrei Luchot, that you have to be covered with the Talmud Chacham, Sheshachach Talmudo, because Luchot for Shivrei Luchot, because that's the whole makor of forgetting, and the same as forgetting is death, right? It's essentially, what do we lead lives of constant dying? You learn things, forget them, it's crazy. Invest in a life and then go to a grave. It's insane. The whole thing is insane. So what is the shattering of the Luchot that literally shatters our lives, shatters our memories? And I mean literally the word shatters, because there's no longer any yichud, any continuity, any shleimus. It's just you're feeling, a piece of a shattered reality. So, I'm at peace, you're at peace, what's the big deal? Leave out one piece, this piece, who cares? I did the whole sense of the doubts about the human condition that are related to mortality and to forgetting and to the very fact that time moves on and becomes inaccessible, which is so central to the idea of Olam Moed, is it such that our lives consist of a series of an infinite number of deaths, depending on how much you cut down the immediate presence. That's a hopelessness. This is a tremendous, tremendous change. And when we recognize the change and we understand that this is where it comes from, so of course it's a very painful project, very, very difficult to face the disappointments, the changes in the relationships, the idea of the vayenatzru, the adayim, that's unbelievable. To have been in a matzav in which everybody has that immortality and that has weapons of immortality and that is made as if the entire universe is clearly each individual. It's just amazing. And the pain of Bnei Yisrael and Vayitabalu, obviously, what deeper Avelut is the deepest Avelut imaginable, is that Vayitabalu. Again, we read it through because we're used to it. So so a relative dies 50 years ago, you get used to it. But it doesn't change the reality of the immediacy of the Avelut, the moment that a person considers the implications of that relationship in Avelut. All of these changes were here. And that explains at least the transition. The transition is very changing. The transition we had, amazingly, Yom Kippurim, right? The last words of last week's parasha. Which of course we were medayik last week. That's the Meshech Chochmah's diuk. But the second Achat B'Shana is a reference to Dorot. The first Achat B'Shana was referring to Aaron, which is only you must do it achat b'shana. It doesn't limit you to achat b'shana. This is it. You can only come. But that achat b'shana is Yom Kippurim, which we didn't even hear of yet, and transitions directly into Ki Tisa, because that's the point of Yom Kippurim, becomes the end of the 140 days that essentially come to an end here. And that Vayimi Mocharat is Mocharat Yom Kippurim, which becomes now Vayakel, next week's parasha. So then it's sort of, this whole thing is this horrible interruption, which we understand why we were talking about Yom Kippurim all of a sudden. But then when we begin Ki Tisa and we start talking right about it, otherwise it would have been a ridiculous shock. Ki Tisa, Rosh B'nai Yisrael of Kudehem, Kofer, Nefesh, and what's the V'lo Yamutu, the Chaper Nafshotechem. I mean, what? Like we were talking about immortality, and you're talking about the Chaper Nafshotechem. How did that happen? So all of these multiple hints of what's going on before are part of the interwovenness, obviously. But that should be our introduction here. I mean, I'm not saying it makes sense. It should be Machzis HaShekels, or get back to that. But in any event, at least we see that this is a truly revolutionary parsha on every level. The Aaron that came into the parsha is not the Aaron that comes out of the parsha. The Moshe that came into the parsha is not the Moshe that comes out of the parsha. The Klal Yisrael that went into the parsha is clearly not the Klal Yisrael that came out of the parsha. And our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu as we go into the parsha is not the same as our relationship as we go out of the parsha, to the extent that we need two shemot, to be Yud Gimel Mitot, essentially, to talk about it. It's the same shem, but it's a different world. So there'd be before Teshuvah and the after Teshuvah, the before Chet and after Chet, which is expressed here, the difference between Amida of Kol Ha'am and Har Sinai and everybody being able to see Panim Panim, Hashem Diberim Lachem, and so on, and now to be able to be unable to look at Moshe Rabbeinu's face because Karni Or Padav, I mean, that, as the Medrash points out, look at the unbelievable kayach of Chet. And yeah, we get to take all of this for granted. So basically, in order to understand the nature of the revolutionary changes, what it actually means, we need to take a closer look at the issues of the parsha itself. Let's consider it as a unit in and of itself, trying to figure out what is happening. It's very confusing parsha on many, many levels. It's confusing because it's another one of those parashot that contains many different issues. Don't seem necessarily to fit together very well. So we open up, okay, the understanding of the opening, if we want to relate it, I mean, it's a sort of a meta relationship. It's not shot. To go from the Mizbeach HaZahav and the Chaper Nafshotechem to go through Ki Tisat Rosh B'nai Yisrael, that doesn't make all that much sense. And then the second parasha, the Asita Ki Yor Nechoshet, V'chano Nechoshet, which makes even less sense. I mean, first of all, the code word of the Asita means we're back in Truma. Because throughout the Tzava, there's no V'asita, there's the V'yata, but there's no V'asita until we get to the end, which was itself a throwback to Truma, which is the Mizbeach HaZahav, which didn't make any sense why we were waiting until now. So all the V'asitas we had completed until we get to the end of the Tzaveh with the Mizbeach HaZahav. So that we understood, okay, so that's part of the Keter Kehuna, you need to have Aaron. So we can work that out. But to come back over here of all ridiculous things, the Kiyor Nechoshet, the Chanon Nechoshet, which belongs Lichora back at the, you're talking about creating the Mizbeach. So you have the Mizbeach, we talk about the Kiyor Nechoshet, then what's the big deal? Then we have to wait. What are we waiting for precisely to introduce this idea? It should go hand in hand, no? But even as Rashi talks about the placement, we have to look at the placement. There's a Bein HaMizbeach and Bein HaPesach HaMoed, it has to be Moshuch Kima. Okay, so that's the place to talk about it. No, not here. Certainly not after Ki Tisa. I mean, if you were to say Ki Tisa, some kind of sum up, and now I want to tell you where you're supposed to get all the material, but it's certainly the Ki Tisa in terms of the Kesef, specifically the Kesef HaKippurim has nothing to do with this. So if you want to finish up, for whatever crazy reason, and you want to finish up the Kalim, so you have the Mizbeach HaZahav, and for some reason the Kiyor V'Kado coming all the way at the end, that should also be better. And then you want to move on to, okay, now we'll talk about how do we get the Kesef for the Adoni. Difficult to understand why, but at least it would make more sense than talking about Kesef Adoni, then coming back to talk about V'asita, and then the very next parasha, וידבר השם על משה, ואתה קח לך בשמים ראש, ואתה is the code word for תצווה. Everything that's done at תצווה is ואתה תצווה. ואתה ביקרא לך, I hear it's the same thing, קח לך בשמים ראש, so again, I mean, we seem to be jumping back and forth. And then we have, I mean, maybe, certainly, we could say that if we separate out all of the opening, we take the Tisa, the din of the Shekol, and then the Kior V'Kano, and then the Shemen HaMishcha, and then the Kitoret, and then the Re'ei Karati B'Shem B'Tzalel, which itself introduces the other problem of the repetition. We go through every single thing again. And the fact is, when we go through every single thing again, we go through till the very end, which includes the Shemen HaMishcha, which includes the above-mentioned Ketoret and so on. So then that certainly leads you to believe, okay, so now we're dealing with some type of wrap-up. Okay, the wrap-up I could understand. So in terms of a wrap-up, maybe we could have, Tisa, we want to talk about now the idea of that which is in common until now. I've been thought of that. So, okay, so there's also, of course, the Ramazim over here, which is a big machlokas, by the way, Rashi and Ramban. What are the Ramazim of the three Trumot, which according to Rashi, the three Trumot includes the Trumot, first of all, of the Adanim, and then the Truma. This is Rashi's entire discussion, that's a whole different, that second count that was done in Bamidbar represents essentially the kesef that is going to be given for the korbanos, and then there's the nidvat kol echad ve'echad. The Ramban has some very powerful comments to make about that because it's wrong. There is no din of pekida of Biben Esrim Shana V'Mala. First of all, the mitzvah b'achzas hashekol is on everybody, and therefore it shouldn't relate bichlal to this particular mitzvah. And it's even worse than that. I mean, Rashi makes this whole big deal that he's got two counts that are the same, and how do you account for the fact that two counts are the same? And he accounts for the fact by saying that in terms of Shnot Anashim, we measure from Tishrei, and therefore it's the same. But when it comes to the Shnot of the Mishkan, obviously we're measuring from Nisan, from Yitziat Mitzrayim, so it's not the same. So why should it be different? Which is just ridiculous, as Ramban points out. What do you mean, why should it be different? First of all, it means nobody died. We know people died. We know none of Avihu died. How come it doesn't go down to 48? Not to mention the fact that, as Ramban points out, you had none of Shevet Levi in that count. And in the first count, you had all of Shevet Levi. So now you're going to have to account for the fact that you got two counts, but just an amazing coincidence. I mean, Rashi didn't talk about that. So anyway, the Ramban learns that no, the remez over here is not to a particular count, but to the din of Machzis HaShekel. Fine, that's L'chaper al nafshotechem in terms of korbanot, but that's the normal din of Machzis HaShekel. So okay, but so let's assume that the whatever it is, whether it's Rashi's Machzis HaShekel, Ramban's Machzis HaShekel, so it's coming L'chaper al nafshotechem. If that's the case, and we're not focusing specifically on this, in other words, that the Shalosh Trumas are more than just a remez, but we want to have a connection between what has happened in the Mishkan and what is going to happen in Dora. Let's suggest that. So then in that case, it may be that what we're doing is we're connecting all of the inyanim that will end up being Ledorot from Achat B'Shana. And that Achat B'Shana is the first time that we've begun talking about what has to be taken care of in the Dorot. That Achat B'Shana itself remembers Mechayev, the ultimate focus on the Kior V'Kano, because you have Asara Kiddushim on Yom HaKippurim. And that, I mean, the idea of Tefillah is itself is secondary to the Kior V'Kano. So every time you have Achlafat Begadim, we go back to Kior. Maybe we require now a new Nitilat Yadayim Raglayim, right? Okay, so maybe it relates to the ongoing understanding that we have that kapara. The Besamim Rosh is the Zeh, And Zeh means L'kol Adorot, L'dorotechem. So it's going to be the same. We know the Nisim, the case the Gemara points out that took place with it, that throughout all of the Dorot, we used exactly Shemin Mishkat Kodesh Zeh, and it's still the same Zeh with the same Gematria Zeh, with the same Yud Beit Luke that we had from the beginning, and it shouldn't have even been enough to be able to make the Shemin HaMishkan in the first place. It becomes the Machloket. How did you make it? Did you boil it? Did you just soak it? And so on. Okay, so that becomes the Zeh. And of course, at the end, the Ketoret belongs exactly where it does, just like the Mizbach. Ketoret belongs exactly where it is. We'll see that. Obviously, there's more to it. But let's just make a suggestion. And then we have Betzalel. So this is, now we know what Betzalel is going to do. And so Betzalel is going to do everything. Moed, Aron Leidut, Kapot HaShalal, Kol Klei HaOl, Shulchan V'Kilav, Menorah Torah Kol Kilea, Mizbach HaKetoret, Mizbach HaOlah, Kol Kilav, Kior, Kano, Bigdei Asrat, Bigdei HaKodesh, and Shemin HaMishkan, Ketorat Tzavim. So now we're up to date. So we've basically integrated everything, and then that's finished. Now, all of a sudden, without any advance warning whatsoever, we find ourselves up on Har Sinai, which is very strange. But Yomer Hashem al Moshe Lemor, as if it's a continuation of the Tzivuyim of the Mishkan, and we don't even understand, like, when were these Tzivuyim of the Mishkan installed? Machlokas, right? We have Machlokas Rishonim, Machlokas Midrashim. Okay, was this actually said before, or is this just out of order? They moved on Torah, but actually the entire Tzivuy HaMishkan follows the Egel. Okay, not all that important for our purposes, but the suddenness of the transition at this particular point onto Har Sinai, without even saying, okay, now we're back at Har Sinai, it's V'yata. It's a little bit strange, we're out of the V'yatas anymore, we said that Beryl B'nai Yisrael. V'yata. Beryl B'nai Yisrael anymore.
What's Rabbi saying that going back to Har Sinai? What would we see more?
Achet Shabtotai Tishmoru is all of a sudden talking not about the event. There's all of this until now, we could say, took place afterwards. Yeah, or according to Bnei Midrashim, they all took place afterwards. This part already we know. We're not talking about take place afterwards. This is up on Har Sinai.
Why couldn't this particular parasha have been said afterwards also?
Because it ends with Kichaloto L'daberito D'Shnei Luchot Avanim. So we're clearly back on Har Sinai, right? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is now talking about Shabbos and the whole thing, you know, and Yashem Kadishchem, Oti B'nei Shmartem Shabbat, and all of these things. Sheshet Yamim, Yasem Malacham. This is all. Does it have something to do with? Well, yeah, it has something to do with the Mishkan. What it has to do with the Mishkan is that, meanwhile, since it uses the lashon of Ach, so that tells me that it shouldn't be Doich the Mishkan, as we'll see later on. So therefore, it comes over here to say, okay, fine, let's say, all right. Dafka, we're using Shabbat as the transition to the next piece. The next piece is, so, I mean, it ought to start, I would have assumed, with Vayara Am Ki Boshesh Moshe Loredet. So now we're going back down off of Har Sinai. We hear the story of the Egel, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Leichrei. Instead, we have a very strange presentation. The Parsha begins, Vayiteno Moshe kechaloto ledaber ito b'Har Sinai, shnei luchot ha'edut, luchot even ktuvim be'etzba Elohim, which naturally you would expect would either be a dramatic parsha unto itself, or would be the siyum of the story of Shabbat. But certainly you would not expect the next words after Vayitena Moshe kechaloto ledaber ito to be Vayara Am Ki Boshesh Moshe Loredet min ha'ar, and the Hakala and Aaron HaKohen and so on and so forth. That's really weird. Okay, so that, let's leave that for a moment. But you can see that the different ambience that each parsha raises, the hints that it has regarding goodness or problems, and the suddenness of the transitions here are difficult, emotionally they're difficult to handle, and conceptually they're difficult to understand how they work without transitions. What are their interrelationships? Okay, then we get into the middle section. Now, the middle section of the parsha is very difficult. The reason it's very difficult is because we don't know when it takes place. It's like there seems to be a lot of contradictions because Moshe is still up on our Sinai and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Lech Rei. Okay, I wish that you all had these parshas in front of you because it's very bolate when you look at them. Lech Rei. And Moshe immediately responds, right? Well, I shouldn't say immediately. As the Zohar says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's got to give him a little kick. Because he didn't respond. He should have responded, but he wasn't smart enough to respond. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him a little kick. What's a little kick? Batashba. Batashba.
Nasi.
Bi'ita, בארמית. הקדוש ברוך הוא נתן לו בעיטה. מה זה הבעיטה? ואתה, הניחא לי. That's my name.
I didn't get the, what's beat that?
הבעיטה, oh, it's a kick.
Oh, okay.
הקדוש ברוך הוא gives him a kick. So the what is the kick? You know, you missed your cue.
Okay, try next time.
Well, you missed your cue. What was his cue supposed to be? That when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gets angry, now somebody's supposed to come in and say something about it, right? But Moshe doesn't realize he's supposed to say something. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to say to him, okay, so Hanicha li, let go of me and I'm going to let go of you. I get the hint. Okay, so then he gets the cue. Second time around, now he gets the cue. So now he starts his cue, and fine. And of course, right on schedule, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, okay, fine. And as the Zohar says, usually we're in this together. We have the good cop and the bad cop, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is like Big Daddy, So he likes to scare the kids. He takes a big belt. I'm going to knock this stuffing out of you guys. And so meanwhile, he knows that the mother's going to be coming along and is going to say, no, just let him live this one time, And okay, fine. But of course, they were working in cahoots. But this time it didn't work. So Moshe Rabbeinu was supposed to take the place of the missing mother. And of course, that becomes a whole issue of the Zohar. What happened to Mom? This is the problem. Fine. So, all right, so Moshe takes it right on cue. Now, that part is still happening up on our Sinai, so we understand what's going on. This is part of the Arboim Yom, the original Arboim Yom, the Moshe Rabbeinu goes up. And so, Vayifan Vayered Moshe Menahar, then we have that whole story of the Shvirat HaLuchot and the questioning of Aaron. Now, we could say that the whole first part of that parasha takes place as soon as he comes down. Right? So he comes down, and this is immediately his reaction. So he sees the Egel, he sees the Mechalot, and so on. And then, Vayar Moshe et ha'am ki paruahu, Vayamod Moshe b'shar ha'machaneh, Vayomer Mila Hashem Elai, and he says, okay, now go around and Yivru Mishar L'shar, kill everybody that did the Egel, and so on. Now, the next day, in the middle of this parsha, it says, Vayimi Mochorat. So, the next day, Moshe says, look, you guys have really screwed up big. Chatatem chata gedolah. I'm going to try to work things out. And so, Vayoshav Moshe el Hashem vayomar, word is that? That seems to be the beginning of what seems to be in Dvorim, a second period of 40 days, right? This is the famous, as Rashi brings here, and as the Gemara brings, and the Psukim seem very clearly mashma and Devarim. There were 3 periods. There was not just 2 periods, even though at the very end, where we get to Psolacha, Vayomer Hashem HaMoshe Psolacha Shnei Luchot Avanim Karishonim. That's the only time that it says clearly. There's Nu Aliyah Har Sinai, Moshe's Oleh, and we repeat the Gvulot of Har Sinai, right? And nobody is allowed to be there. Ish lo ya'aleimach. That sounds like the beginning of the Brit, right? Even Gamatzon V'Abakar Al Yiru Morahu. And then we start again very similar to the original Arboim Yom. It doesn't say very clearly over here anywhere about when precisely Moshe goes up for these middle 40 days. So maybe this is the middle 40 days. So he goes back to Hashem. He says, and what happens? He threatens HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The whole thing is a little bit strange. He doesn't even talk very much. He says, look, it's a disaster. So if you're ready to forget about the whole thing, fine. If not, I'm out. You'd expect, some lengthy tefillah. He said, I'm going back up for 40 days. I'm going to be barat something. So you could learn, of course, that this is sort of a kitzer, So this is Vidu Yom Kippurim. Okay, so he's masking the hate, and he says a proper teshuvah. This is the Gemara's riot, that you have to be masking the hate. So okay, that's what they did. And it's not as if he simply turns to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, so was I Yaitse? I was Yaitse, my Vidui. Okay, so now, Imayin Mechenina Misifrach. Maybe it wasn't really that bad. Maybe he took another 40 days. Maybe. But then the question is the response, which is the next part. So the first part of the response is, okay, fine, but I'm going to be sending a malach with you, and I'm not going to forget about this. Whenever we get a problem again, right? So it's going to be a problem. And then we have, turn it off. Then we have the Vayigo. So now this is the Magifa that comes as the result of the Yega, which means that there were essentially 3 responses to the Yega. Correct? The first response is Moshe comes down, he immediately takes the Egel, this is back in that first parsha on his way down. Off of our, I can't tell you where, there's no psukim numbers in this volume. So that makes it very difficult. You know what? Kobe Darling passed me the white one over there that's got the same thing but with the psukim. No, the thin, tall white one in the back. No. Yeah, that's probably good too. Yeah. This way I'll be, if I use this one, I'll be able to actually give it a psukim. Shema? Yeah, we're about to get to there. So we have 3 different responses. Okay, so response number 1. Moshe comes down, takes the Yegel, Vayisrof Ba'ish, Vayitchan al Shadak, Vayizer al Pnei Hamayim, Vayashket Pnei Yisrael. So not only was the Lashon later on about Kipra O Aaron Lashim Tzabaka Mehem, the Lashon of Parah Rosh Hashanah, but literally he treats them exactly the same as Parah Rosh Hashanah. So they're treated as Sotat. So that's the first thing that happens. What happens? Vayashket B'nai Yisrael. So anybody who was Oved the Egel is going to die the same way that Isha Sotat will die, as the Gemara says, the Hadrokan. So they'll choke to death, blow up, and so on and so forth, right? All right. Then, after this, Moshe says to them, to the Leviim, he says to them, okay, Mila Hashem Elai, which of course becomes a central point of the Kahuna later on with the Kohanim Shevet Levi during Hanukkah. Mila Hashem Elai, and he says, Ko Amar Hashem Elokei Yisrael Simu Ish Charbal Yerecho. Okay, so 3,000 people are actually killed by the sword. This is a different type of death, and they didn't die apparently before from the Ashkaya Kesotah for some reason. So there were people that needed to be murdered. Fine. So then we killed them. But then there's still people around because it says Vayigof Hashem et ha'am al asher asu et ha'egel. So then that's in Pasuk Lamed Dalet. So that means that there was a Magefa as well. 3 separate types of punishments for the Egel, which we'll get back to. The Gemara discusses what the basis is of those 3 completely different punishments.
You can't learn Lemon Hay is the long-term one and not what happened now?
No. And the Asher Asa Aaron makes doubly powerful, the presence of Aaron the villain. Again, as we saw before. Okay, but then, so now what has happened? We know that a Malach is going to be going, not HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then Vayedaber Hashem Moshe Lech Alei Mizeh Ata Ve'am Asher Abita Be'eretz Yisrael. Lech Alei Mizeh when? Exactly. Now, later, when you come back again after Psolocha, is this like jumping ahead? Or ultimately, it'll be okay. Lech Alei Mizeh, you're going to talk, and I'm going to send that Malach, and we're going to take care of everything. Okay, but the people are very unhappy because HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you can't expect me to come along with a bunch of nuts like this. You don't need me around, You're never going to survive my being around. They're very upset. Everybody's very upset. So maybe it changed. So then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, all right, I'll tell you what. Take off the Adayim. It says, and I'll see. I'll think about it. Which is a tremendously powerful point, because remember, the Lashon of Vayit Natzlu is the same as the Lashon of Vayit Parku. They're both reflexive. So when it talked about to be mifarek the jewelry, the Lashon at the end of what was done is not that they were mifarek the jewelry, but rather they were mitparek from the jewelry, which is a completely different thing. It means that they experienced the stripping of themselves of their jewelry. This becomes Vayit Natzlu, which is the same Lashon. And in fact, some of them are Farshayim, Vayit Natzlu is Vayit Parku. So Vayit Natzlu, they stripped themselves of the Adayim, which was this horrific Mida Keneged Mida, And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, okay, so then I'll think about it. So they do this. So now he's thinking about it.
But also, Allah, before that, that's different.
So Rashi says, Vayit Natzlu is take it off completely. Even more. Well, Shato, I don't want to put it on. If it's chutzpah to put it on, but that still needs to be stripped. With the understanding of that Lashon, it's very clear. When you take off your clothes, you don't feel stripped of your clothes. Your clothes you put on a hanger, and whatever, you're going to sleep, you put on your pajamas. But the idea that you should be stripped of your clothing is that's a horrific kind of thing. So the Lashon itself brings out that difference. You don't even need the Rashi once you're aiming on that Lashon, right? Fine. So now maybe there's a change of heart. In other words, maybe Lech Alei was meant to be, let's do this right now. Then everybody feels terrible about it. And they hear about it. How do they hear about it exactly? He's on my cell phone, WhatsApp. How do they hear about it? Moshe Rabbeinu is up on Har Sinai when this is taking place. He said, I'm going to be Oleh to talk, Elel Hashem Ulaya Chapra, Vayoshav Moshe Hashem. So what do you mean? They hear about it? So then they send an email back, listen, this is terrible, what can we do? Kodesh Baruch Hu says, all right, tell them they can take it out. He sends an email back. It's a very strange situation. How exactly did the things back on the ground, how were they getting communicated? Where were these changes taking place? But now it gets even worse, because it continues in Pasuk Zayin with something that couldn't possibly have happened. It says, Moshe yikach et ha'oel v'nata lo michutz lamachaneh, archek min ha'machaneh, v'kara lo oel bo'ed. When did that happen? That happened when he was on Har Sinai. When exactly did he do that? There's pieces that I might take out from the pages to make life easier on myself. I probably put them in that other book. I did, you see. So who's the villain? Me. I only did it because of you.
Tati Ten goes both ways.
You can't start up with it all. I should have known to watch out. Yeah. Okay. So where does this happen, right? It's worse than that. It's not just that he does it. It now describes a day-to-day hanhar, right, by utilizing the voice of Hoveh. So now we're talking about something that goes on all the time. What goes on all the time? Like we would say in English, well, Moshe would take the tent and he would go out and he would do this. What do you mean he would? Moshe ייקח את האור, right? והיה כל מבקש אדוני יצא לו מועד אשר מחוץ למחנה, והיה כצאת משה לאור יקומו כל העם, וניצבו איש פתח אוהלו, והביטו אחרי משה עד בואו האוהל. And this would take place. So every time that Moshe went out to meet with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he left the Machana, he went ahead and he got into this old moed, which he moves his tent, a chutzpah, now he's calling it an old moed. Okay, fine, an old moed. Well, it turns out it's the old moed. Because sure enough, sounds like it really was the old moed. It was his bedroom. Huh? Strange. ודיבר משה. וראה כל העם את עמוד הענן עומד פתח האוהל, וקם כל העם והשתחוו איש פתח האוהל. This is what would happen. ודיבר השם על משה פנים אל פנים כאשר ידבר איש אל רעהו. This is what would take place. ושב אל המחנה, and then he would go back home. Go back home, I thought this was his home. Then he would shove אל המחנה to talk to people in the Machane and to teach them, right? Now, so Rashi says, okay, so this is crazy. When did this happen? I mean, there was no time to do any of this. Well, this is talking about something that took place after Yom Kippur. Because when else going to take place? So after Yom Kippurim, this is what happens. And now we're describing the situation of the Moshe's Ohel as the Ohel Moed between the time of the Tzivui HaMishkan and Matzah Yom Kippurim until Echad B'Nisan, which was the beginning of Moshe's work of the actual Hakamat HaMishkan. So that means it's quite a long time. So from Yom Kippur until Echad B'Nisan. So ask the Rabban, but that's what's doing here. Why in the world will we interrupt these proceedings with something that couldn't possibly have happened here? Very strange. So we're confused. We don't know where we are and we don't know when we are. And this is just the opening part. Fine.
Does this mean that Yeshua was allowed inside the veil when the covenant was there?
Yes.
It's very different to the Mishkan.
But it's worse than this. Because the Gemara says that the meaning of the Shav El HaMachaneh, look, before we talk about how bad it is, let's talk about without the Gemara, because we can understand how some of it makes no sense. Why is the Ohel of Moshe Michutz HaMachane? So as Rashi says, it's Michutz HaMachane because Moshe Rabbeinu says, look, Menuda l'Rav, Menuda l'Talmid. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu is angry, what am I going to, it's not right that I'm going to be Makar of them, and he's angry at them. So I can't be in the Machane. Says Ramban, but that's impossible, because if, according to Rashi, this happens after Yom Kippurim, then that's already after the Ritzui. And that's what it says, that it was complete Ritzui, Salachti, and even the last 40 days were already in a getter of a restored relationship. Rewriting the setting, the Ulchais, so it makes no sense. Worse than that Nakuda is the words V'shav El HaMachana, which Rashi himself brings. That the simple meaning of the V'shav El HaMachana is it's continuing to discuss, and this is what would happen every day, right? But the other pshat of V'shav El HaMachana is that it's a tzivui. And that HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe, you've got to get back into the Machana. Because what is everybody going to say? A Rav Bikas, a Talmid Bikas, what's Yisrael Matahei Aleim, Mi Mikarevet B'nai Yisrael, you better go back and be Mikarevet B'nai Yisrael. Mikarevet B'nai Yisrael after Yom Kippurim and after all, what exactly is going on and why did he stay out? Worse yet is the Gemara. So the Gemara says the V'shav El HaMachane u'misharto Yoshua ben Nun is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to Moshe Rabbeinu and says to him, now listen here, buddy. Either you're going to get back into that machane, or I got your replacement already. You see, Mishatcha, Yoshua ben Nun, get ready to believe. Now, this is very powerful when you take into consideration that's what the Haftarah is about. The story of the Haftarah is essentially completed in the next parak, where Eliyahu, indeed, after doing all of these things with Hashemu Elohim, Hashemu, exactly the same thing happens. Ezekiel says, you're dead. He runs away to the same place where Moshe is standing right now. That's where Eliyahu was when this takes place. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, so you're still angry? I'm still angry. I'm going to replace you. Replace me. Okay, you're Nar, that's Elisha. So this is serious stuff. Okay, so you're finished. I'm replacing you with Elisha, right? And that's exactly what Moshe is being told. You know, if you can't get over your anger, I thought the whole thing was that he was angry because HaKadosh Baruch Hu was angry. Now it turns out HaKadosh Baruch Hu wasn't angry. Now they're fighting about who should be angry. I mean, that's exactly what happens with Eliyahu. You know, understand, can't you get it through your head that lo barash Hashem? I mean, cool off, baby. It's like, it's cold mamad.com. Hey, time for cold mamad.com. No, not for me. I'm out of here. Okay. It's an amazing contrast to the Parsha and the Haftarah, but with this it becomes very, very integrated and very interrelated. So we got the whole thing doesn't seem to make sense at all. Right?
The thing is cool about caring more than God. Sentimentality.
Yes. Okay, so we don't understand where the back and forth of all of this took place.
I don't understand something. This is written after Moshe Rabbeinu tell Kadosh Baruch Hu Ein Mechenin HaMesifra Chashak Asarta, where Moshe is not angry, is trying to get Hashem to the Mechaper. Then now again.
Okay, but I started Mechaper Benuda L'Ram Benuda L'Talmud. Right?
Yeah, but it's, as Rabbi said, it was only because Kadosh Baruch Hu is angry, so he is angry.
He was angry. He's still angry because that's it says in Dvarim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is still fuming, right?
That's before Yom Kippur.
Yeah, of course, before Yom Kippur.
No,
only the part about his oil, the chutz l'machana, is after Yom Kippur, because he wasn't in the machana, according to Rashi. Rashi's lashon is Yashar min ha'am elahar min ha'ar ela'am. That was the reason Moshe spent 2 minutes there, gave over the minute, but I mean, there was an awful lot of messages that were going on that don't tie into that. So we have a problem with the whole thing. I guess we have to break down for
לא עכשיו.
אז מה נעשה?
תמיד אתה עושה איזה הפסקה לפרסומת.
איך נרוויח?
יאללה, 18 וחזרה מיד.
אוקיי. איך נרוויח?
יאללה.
This is the only way that he's ever...
מה, אני זה
What are you talking? You know what I'm talking about. No, you don't. No, it wasn't this.
I just got this line.
Okay,
You calling this
we got to run. Yeah.